Xena Communications brings you this segment of the Sports Narrative radio show, offering customizable network cameras with installation for residential and commercial properties in the greater DFW area. Call or click today to set up your free consultation.
Scouting Combine is a fascinating study in how the NFL really didn't start to get it until just recently. So, the Scouting Combine was first proposed in 1982 by one Tex Schramm, Cowboys general manager. Prior to that time, basically, teams were left to their own devices when it came time to figure out who these players were. So they would have to schedule individual meetings, individual medical workouts, and all of this stuff. And all of it was just the Wild West.
Uncentralized.
It really was. So what Tex Schramm said was, well, what if we all got together and we all, that way we could share information and medicals and all of this stuff, right? Well, the first one was held in Tampa, Florida, and it was called the National Invitational Combine, or the NIC. There were also two other camps taking place around the country at the same time, and so basically all the teams were there, and the very first combine had 163 people to it, and they all kind of got together and figured this thing out. Well, finally, in 1985, these three separate services, which, by the way, they weren't run by the NFL. They were run by private companies. And so they finally, all three joined forces, and in 1985, the very first official scouting combine was held, and it was renamed as such. In 85, it was held in Arizona. In 86, it was held in New Orleans. And then in 1987, it finally made the conversion to Indianapolis, where it has been ever since.
Has it always been an invite? Did you say that has always been an invite?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's interesting. There's actually a committee that has to give a supermajority to each player in order for him to get an official invite. There's 335 invites. About 150 to 250 are given out before the bowl season ends. So there's a lot of guys that they kind of know, okay, these are our guys. And then the last ones, they go to the committee and they vote. There's always snubs every year of guys who get in and don't. In fact, Mr. Feltman, our very own interviews, Aaron Green, the TCU running back, did not get invited this year to the Combine. So not the end of the world, but kind of disappointing because he was a nice little interview. The biggest part of the Combine is there's, of course, the on-the-field drills that we get to see and watch these guys run around versus air, but they really don't mean that much. What's really important about these are the interviews and the medicals, all of the stuff you don't see. Each team gets the opportunity to check out these players, their own doctors, and all this stuff. They get a chance to interview. Now, there's a limited number of interviews you have. You have 15 minutes, and you have, I think, a maximum of 35 players you can interview. And so you kind of have to pick and choose who you want to talk to. Now, you can do some informal stuff on the field, but the actual formal interviews. And so these guys literally show up in the morning, and they'll have their schedule of however many interviews they go on. And a guy like last year, like Marcus Mariota, he probably went to 20 teams. And so it's, you go in an interview and you're sitting down and they're asking you anything they want to ask you for 15 minutes. And they're just grilling you in psychological tests and all of this stuff. And then you get up and you go to the next team and they do the exact same thing. So it's really a beatdown. Now, some of the other parts of this, in addition to the interviews and medicals, of course, there's a drug screening, as previously discussed. There is the Wonderlic test, which is a 50-question test. Basically, it's kind of a general knowledge test. It's more of something where you can kind of learn.
It's like quick math.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff like that. And then there's the Cybex test, which is a test of flexibility. Also one of the things you don't see.
Is that the jumping up and hitting the thing?
Nope, that's a different thing. Then the on-the-field test, you have the weigh-in, you have your 40-yard dash, you have your bench press, which is a 225-pound weight, and you see how many reps you can do. There's the vertical, which is what you were talking about. They go up and check the thing. There's a broad jump. There's a 20-yard shuttle. There's a 3-cone drill, and there's a 60-yard shuttle. Now, there's been several of these where they've wanted to add different tests that are more football appropriate. And then, of course, the coaches are on the field, and they get to run the players through drills. So we get to see all of that. Well, combines past have had some very interesting outputs, as you've had these guys who have absolutely careered in the combine and never done anything since, or you've had guys that have set some ridiculous records. So we're going to talk about some of those guys. The first one of those is Justin Ernest. I'm sure you all know that. Yeah, I'm sure you all know that name. He was a defensive tackle out of Eastern Kentucky, and in 1999, he did 51 reps of 225 pounds, which is still the record at the combine. He played one season for the San Francisco 49ers and never did anything. So, in addition, the 40-yard dash. Yes?
No, I'm going through the 51 reps. I mean, how big was this guy? I mean,
Oh, he was huge.
Okay.
Yeah, he was throwing it up for real. So,
jeez.
In addition to that, in the 40-yard dash, you have two different record holders. Now, prior to, I think it was 91 or so, all of the 40-yard dashes were just by stopwatch, and everyone had a different time. Well, while they still do keep stopwatch times, there is an official starter and ending time. Now, some years it gets a little off, in my opinion. So it's tough to trust it always, but there is an official time now. So, but the time previous to the standardized timing, the record was held by two men, really, but one that you would know.
Dion.
One, Bo Jackson.
Whoa.
Ran an alleged 4.1240.
I don't see how, but
That was the time that showed up in 1986, Bo Jackson. Of course, the Dion story that you are referencing is one of my favorite combine stories of all time. So, Dion was supposed to be there the day before, and he wasn't going to show up. And then he decided, okay, his agent talked to him and said, hey, we really need you to show. So he goes, okay. So he shows up. He pulls up from his plane lands. He gets in a limo. The limo takes him to the field in Indianapolis. As he walks out, he changes his clothes, and as he's walking out, it's going to be his time to run the 40. So, with no warning, he walks out there, jumps in the starting block, runs a 4.2140, keeps running down the tunnel, never stops, gets back in the limo, and goes away.
Was that true?
That's the story Gil Brandt tells, and he's old, and he's the late great Gil Brandt. So,
but Dion also ran in the combine last year, wasn't it? Or the year before?
Yes, as Leon Sandcastle.
Yeah.
Yes. Now the official time when they started actually keeping a standardized time is held by Chris Johnson, the running back for Tennessee and several other teams, as he ran a 4.2440 officially. The broad jump is held by one Cowboys Byron Jones, who set an Olympic record
at the combine.
At the combine with a 12-foot 5-inch jump.
Whoa!
And the record for the vertical jump is also a former Cowboy. Gerald Sensabaugh had a 46-inch vertical, which is probably why he was good at blocking kicks in college.
That was Al Michaels' guy, Sensabaugh.
Sensabaugh, yes, exactly. A couple other guys that were very much standouts, combine workout warriors who never really lived up to much. The first one, near and dear to my heart, Vernon Golston, the defensive end of Ohio State, who was 6'3", 260. He ran a 4.5840. Did 37 reps at the bench press and had a 41-inch vertical, and everyone thought this guy was going to be a beast.
Did he smoke pot?
Nope, but he just sucked. He finished his 3-year career with the Jets, never got picked up by another team. Well, never made another team. He got picked up but never played, with exactly 0 career sacks.
Were you happy when the Jets got him?
No.
No?
I was worried, and I had good reason to be. As the number 6 pick in the draft, he was. Another guy like that in the year 2000, John Engelberger, was a walk-on at Virginia Tech. He went to the Combine, and he had this incredible quickness at a 3-cone drill, which got him drafted in the 2nd round by San Francisco. He never did anything. And maybe most famously of all was the case of one Mike Mamula, as he was the first guy to specifically train for the combine. He actually got a track coach who had taught him how to run the 40, which prior to that no one did. He worked on the drills that they did at the combine. So as 6'4", 250 pounds,
what was his position?
He was a defensive end for the Eagles. He ran a 4.58 40. He did 28 reps on the bench press, and he only missed one question on the Wonderlic because he practiced it.
But he didn't know what a football was.
So he went with the number 7 pick overall to the Philadelphia Eagles and was out of the league 5 years later.
Well, that's not a bad. I mean, 5 years is okay.
Not with the number 7 pick, bro.
Find more by subscribing to this channel and visiting us at www.thesportsnarrative.com. Join us every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Central for a live edition of the Sports Narrative radio show hosted by Xena Communications.